Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum, and I'm seeing you once again. We are meeting once again for lecture 11 of Business English. Let's see what we are going to discuss today. Before I tell you what we are going to discuss today, let me give you a quick recap of what we discussed the last time. We discussed in the previous 2-3 lectures, we were doing the genres of writing, and in these genres we covered letter writing, memo writing, and email writing. We covered the conventions, the strategies, the practices, the do's and don'ts, examples, analysis. And now in today's lecture, we are going to focus on business meetings and minutes. Business meetings and minutes writing. However, before we go into minutes writing, we need to understand what are these business meetings, how do we plan them, how do we execute them, and then when we execute them, what it is meant by recording business meetings procedures, and that is basically minute writing. We will discuss essentials of business meetings and questions for planning a meeting, the need for agenda, or what is an agenda, pre-meeting task, during meeting tasks, post-meeting tasks, and common disruptive tasks, dealing with loud mouths and distractions, preparing the minutes, what to include in the minutes, and taking minutes then practically, and some guidelines and sample for that. Okay, let's move on with our topic of today's subject-specific topic of today's talk, that is business meeting. How do we plan it? How do we execute? And then minute writing. Well, before that we start talking about business meetings, well, we need to know what is a meeting. Well, meeting is a scheduled gathering of group members, 2 people or more than 2 people, for a structured discussion guided by a designated chairperson. That's a business meeting. That's a meeting, and if it has the purpose of business behind that, it becomes business meeting. Now, what are the essential elements? In the light of this discussion, in the light of this definition, the essential elements are 3. It's a triangular thing as far as the elements are concerned. You have a schedule for the meeting, you have a structure for the meeting, and you have a chairperson for the meeting, one who holds the chair of the meeting. All right. Now, if we have to plan a meeting, what are the things we need to look at? What are the things we need to be careful about? The questions for planning a meeting is that, why are we meeting? Okay, the purpose of this meeting. Who should attend the meeting? The participants who are going to be invited. When should we meet? The time, date, and location. Where should we meet? The venue. What materials do we need? Do we need any materials to go through the procedures of the meeting? These are the basic questions you need to think about to plan a business meeting. Well, now, do I need to have an agenda? What is an agenda, by the way? Well, agenda is the outline of items to be discussed and tasks to be accomplished during a meeting. So when you plan a meeting, definitely there is a task behind. There is a reason behind that. There are multiple reasons. So agenda gives you a list of ideas that are to be discussed and a list of actions that are to be taken care of during the meeting, or they are the part of meeting discussion. An agenda is an organizational tool. It's very handy when you are planning a meeting or organizing a meeting. It helps members prepare for a meeting, because agenda is not for the chairperson to keep with him or her. It is to be distributed as well. You can distribute it to people who are going to attend your meeting before they come to meeting. So they have an idea and they are prepared mentally for the kind of discussion that is going to take place. And if they have to do some homework for that, they are prepared for that homework. Agenda is a time management tool, and then it keeps you on the track, since business meeting is a practice that very much takes care of time, because everybody is so busy in business. So if things are already enlisted and the chairperson is prepared, what is to be talked, and the participants are prepared to respond to that idea, you are managing your time effectively, and you will not get distracted. And then it provides a measure of success. All right. If your agenda is prepared, that means your objectives are clear. You are clear what kind of outcomes you want from your meeting. So if you're clear about your outcomes, you will stick to your objectives during the meeting, and this sticking thing to your objects will ensure the desired outcomes after the meeting. So an agenda of the meeting should have these things, thoughts about these things. What is going to be the purpose of meeting? Name of the group members. If they are they have to, make a list of like columns for present and absent. So later on you can fill in them. Date, time, and place. Call to order. And approval of the agenda. Approval of previous meetings minutes. If it's a series of meeting, then previous meeting is, the minutes are approved that this has already been discussed, and this is the part of the series that we are going to discuss in the following meeting. Individual and committee reports, if you want any reports to be presented. Unfinished business, if you have any unfinished business and you want to bring that forward for discussion in the current meeting. New business, if there is a new business you want to discuss, under this heading you can write that. If there are any announcements to make, if there are any adjournments to talk about. So now we are going to talk about all of these things individually. Well, look at this sample agenda, sample discussion agenda. Look at the title. It has a monogram on the top, and it has a watermark of the monogram that shows that this document relates to some organization, and it's an organizational agenda. The purpose of the meeting is given very clearly: to recommend ways to increase the effectiveness of and participation in the company's recycling program. That's the purpose of the meeting. Now there are 7 main ideas to be discussed, and see how they are numbered and then how they are listed alphabetically when the 4th idea has 4 different aspects to be discussed. The questions are given that the chairperson will ask, and the possible his or her anticipation will guide him when she's designing this agenda for the questions that need to be raised as feedback or as to follow up the main question. All right. So after looking at this agenda, what do you think that can be a chairperson's pre-meeting tasks? So what a chairperson needs to do, somebody who is holding the meeting. Chairperson notifies members, and a chairperson distributes materials among participants of the meeting, and he reminds members that yes, this is going to be done, and prepares for discussion as well. Now chairperson's tasks that he or she does during the meeting. He begin on time, because in business we have to be very careful about the time aspect. You have to be punctual. Time is currency. Words are currency. So basically you are dealing with the effectiveness of your business, professionalism, and for professionalism, punctuality is one key aspect. So be on time, and delegate minutes. You tell the person you need to decide who is going to write the minutes of the meeting. Follow the agenda, and then follow your agenda. Facilitate the discussion, and provide closure. The chairperson is not the speaker of the meeting. He's not the leader of the meeting, but he's the middle person who directs the meeting, and who is basically playing the role of a facilitator and director who gives indicators wherever they are due. Now, chairperson's task, post-meeting task, that he evaluates the meeting, he distributes the minutes, and he monitors assigned tasks. Now, when the meeting is in process, there are certain behaviors practiced. Some behaviors are positive, some are negative. And since meeting deals with a group of people, so always there are some people who try to generate negative energies, because we are human beings, and somebody who's not negative, even a specific set of mind or frame of mind or background in his or her head may unconsciously provoke him or her to create or generate some negative energy. So there can be some disruptive behaviors for certain reasons. For example, non-participants, the participants are not really participating in the meeting, and they maybe are busy in, eating or drinking or taking tea unnecessarily, or if it's a meeting and you have served tea for people, and sometimes it happens at business meetings, they organize during tea breaks or lunchtime to save time. However, you clearly discuss it with your participants that, see, we are having a tea time meeting. You can take your tea, but you are expected, being a professional, to pay due attention to the talk being delivered or to the topic being discussed. However, what you do is you become a non-participant by fully attending your cup of tea or attending the plate of snacks that you have in front of you, and maybe you are using your mobile or your tablet or doing something that shows that you are not participating. So non-participation is a disruptive behavior. It may motivate others to do the same. It irritates your chairperson. Then it definitely affects the output of the meeting. Loudmouths. Some people are vocal, some are they are over vocals, and they articulate things which are not to be articulated, and sometimes they articulate them many a time. So they are loudmouths of the meeting, who would like to interrupt unnecessarily, who would like to distract unnecessarily, who would like to speak at the wrong time, or maybe speak again and again for something that has been discussed or declared. So you need to know how to deal with these loudmouths. Interrupters, and then there are other types of interrupters, and whispering. You need to know how to control these interruptions. And latecomers and early leavers, who would like to leave early. So these are common disruptive behaviors in a meeting. How to deal with loudmouths? Well, dealing with loudmouths needs acknowledging that you understand their position. First of all, give them this acknowledgement that their behavior is registered. Now, how are you going to acknowledge it? This can be a silent acknowledgement, a gestural acknowledgement, or this can be a verbal acknowledgement, a polite one. This can be a verbal acknowledgement, a serious one, or this can be some acknowledgement in black and white if the case gets very serious. Interrupt them and shift the focus to other members. Tell them the group needs input from everyone. Remind them again and again politely that their participation is of value, and that is why they are here in the meeting. Assign them sideline tasks like taking minutes. That is one way of making them focus what is being talked. So there are many other ways. Instead of verbalizing things, there are many other ways of positively dealing with the interrupters. Assign them, shift them from talking to listening and writing. That is how they will do it. Now, this is a small activity for you to think about. If you are a chairperson of a meeting and you are holding a meeting, how will you deal with these interruptions? And for example, the non-participants, interrupters, whisperers, and latecomers and early leavers. How will you deal with it, considering the factor that you are a chairperson, and for business, working as a team is very important. So if you are going to be very defensive or you're going to overreact, this may break the team temperament, and this may not be very positive. This may not generate very positive energy for the upcoming task and projects. So you have to keep the both ends. So how will you do it? Write down your answers for these interruptive behaviors. Preparing the minutes. Now when you are in the process of meeting and meeting is being executed, the minutes of meeting are basically the written record of a group's discussion and activities. Legal documents as well as historical records of organization business, a way to share what happens with members who don't attend, a way to prevent disagreement over member assignments and group decisions. You may forget them, you may disagree later on, so you record them for a record in future. What to include in the minutes: name of the group, date and place of meeting, name of attending members, name of the chair, name of absentees like absent members, time the meeting called to order, time the meeting adjourned, finished, name of persons preparing the minutes, and summary of discussion and decisions including action items. Now, taking minutes. Write clear statements and summarize the meeting's main idea and action when you are writing a minute. Word decisions, motions, action items, and deadlines exactly as the group makes them. If in doubt, ask the group for clarification. Attach the agenda and any reports to the final copy of the minute. Now, guidelines for taking minutes. Report the facts and all slides of a discussion accurately. Always keep in mind that the minutes are a public record of the meeting, so what you are writing, try to be impartial and try to record what really is happening there. Don't try to interpret that. Look at the sample of informal minutes. Look at the heading section clearly. Look at how it tells about the company, all the people who are present, and the absent member, the time meeting begins at, what is the group topic to discuss, research assignments that are given, the actions that are expected for future plan, absent members, and the reason for that, class and presentation, and then for a clue for the next meeting, and the time the meeting adjourned, and the notes taken by the person who is recording the minutes. Now, this was the precise introduction of business meetings, the planning, execution, and then minute writing procedure. And we talked about how do we take minutes, what do we write in the minutes, and I shared some samples with you. Now we are going to practice how do we write minutes. Well, conducting interactive meetings and writing minutes is a skill that is very much used in business scenarios. And steps in planning meetings include setting the agenda. Now you are clear what agenda is. And when we are setting the agenda, we are talking about elements, order of agenda items, and example. Participating in meetings, the chairperson, the secretary, and the participants. And conducting interview when we are resolving conflict. The possible things that we are doing are thinking about possible outcomes and win-win assumptions. Writing minutes of meeting includes elements, producing minutes, and example, and strategies to improve your listening effectiveness. These are the things that we are going to discuss in detail. Now, steps in planning a meeting. Well, what are the steps we need to take when we are planning a meeting? We need to determine our purpose. How do we determine the purpose? Information sharing, or it's decision making, or when we talk about that decision making is the purpose of meeting, basically we still have different subheadings of that, like whether it's identifying an issue or brainstorming, or it is persuasion and negotiation or discussion, or it's a decision that we are making. The meeting can be problem solving in purpose. In problem solving, again, we have three directions: identifying solutions, brainstorming, evaluating solutions, that is discussion, or choosing best solution, that is decision, making a decision. Steps in planning a meeting. Well, you need to select the participants, you need to select the key contributors, and you need to select decision makers who are going to be the board of directors for that meeting. Then setting the agenda. We've already discussed agenda, but you need to frame the structure of the meeting. You need to it needs to consist of a list of items to be discussed, and it should distribute meeting. This should be distributed before the meeting, and the content in advance of better contribution of the participants. And it basically, a good agenda allows chairperson to keep the meeting focused and achieve its purpose. And a good agenda presents items in order they appear and the limit allocated by the chairperson. So it's important to have a well-informed, well-designed agenda. Picking the convenient time and the location, the time of the day, morning versus afternoon, or venue, comfort and convenience, and the seating has to be taken care of, because if it's a long meeting, these things are going to play a role in that. Preparing notice of meeting and sending out documents and copying minutes of last meeting to, if it's a meeting, one of this meeting in the series. Now, we have already discussed the elements of agenda. However, if you want to make it a brief agenda, and this should involve to, from, and date, subject, brief description of the meeting, issue to be discussed, person responsibility for any designated issue, designated timeline, and the action, decisions, or amendments, or the headings, what kind of action is taking place in the meeting. Let's have a look at a few examples. The Grabit Insurance Company, it's the agenda of their meeting. Look at the example. Look at the formatting procedure. Look that it's an adapted version from NLM. There is a difference between the word adopted and adapted. Adopt means that you are using a template as it is, and you have copied it from somebody. So if you are using it as it is, write down in the source section, right in the bottom, that it's adopted from ABC website, whatsoever that website is, or ABC book, if it's a book adoption, or if it's a person adoption, you can write the name of the person. So you are not copying it without permission. You are mentioning the source and not taking the credit of someone else's work. However, if you pick some template from somebody and you want to make a change into it, maybe a line, maybe a word, maybe any kind of change, that means you're not using it as it is and you are personalizing it for your purpose. So then it becomes adapted. It's not adopted anymore. ADAPTED, adapted from this. This shows that this belongs originally to this person, however you as a user has made some change into it. So it's an adaptation. Alright, I hope rest of the things that are there in the sample, we've already discussed them. So let's move on. Now, participating in the meeting, well, the chairperson has a role to play before the meeting, during the meeting, and after the meeting. The secretary has again all the three roles, and the participants, they all have these three aspects of their roles. Let's talk about the participation. Each participant has a role to play in a meeting as follows, like establishing purpose, deciding if a meeting is necessary, choosing participants, preparing agenda, circulating agenda, and checking arrangements. These are the few things that you have to be very clear about if you are a chairperson. However, during the meeting, there are certain things that are to be done and done simultaneously together. Look at this. You open the meeting, you call the meeting to order, and the chairperson does it. You invite introductions if necessary. You state the purpose of the meeting, present the agenda, and move to first agenda item. And then you invite someone to speak. Then there can be some interruption. There can be a control action if necessary that goes on to asking for repetition and clarification, bringing others into the discussion. This will lead you to paraphrase your statement or restate saying what you have already done, or summarize in a brief channel, giving a brief channel statement. And then you'll move on to the next point. You will conclude the discussion, summarize the discussion, points raised, make sure tasks are delegated, and ask if there is any other business to be discussed, and then end the meeting and fix the next meeting date if there is any. So this is the flow of the meeting that is ongoing, that is going on, and you are moving it, you are following it. However, following it in a systematic way, in an organized way, according to your agenda, always helps you save time, and the meeting to be fruitful, and outcomes achieved. So the secretary has a role to play. This can be a general secretary, or this can be a secretary nominated for this particular meeting. So anybody can be, any participant can be your secretary as well if you wish to, because it helps you keep a double check on the flow of the meeting, and you can assign certain tasks to secretary to control, and so to minimize your work and then add authenticity and more organization to your work process. So secretary can help in distributing the agenda to participants, check physical arrangements, and preparing stationery and necessary documents which are to be distributed during meeting, and can book the venue, or can make sure that the venue is ready before the meeting, before the time, before the day, if there are any things to be prepared for that. So you try to be in a team, you try to work like a team. Even meeting is one action that you take as a business activity, and if in this business activity you are working like a team, the results can be expected accordingly, and when there are several shoulders to share the responsibility, there are many heads to think about one thing, always you have better ideas and better outcomes than working something individually and all alone. During meeting, participants are expected to take notes for the meeting and providing information to chairperson and participant if needed, whenever they are asked. That means to participate. However, after the meeting, writing up the minutes, checking accuracy of the minutes with the chairperson, and circulating the minutes to participants before the next meeting is either the task of the secretary or the chairperson, or if it is specially designated to someone as minute writer. So you are the one, if you are a minute writer, you are going to do all these tasks. And the participants, what they are expected to do beforehand if you are going to attend a business meeting. So you are expected to read the agenda and any other pre-meeting documents that are either assigned officially or are expected unofficially to be read by the participants. Prepare for the meeting, confirm availability, and being punctual to the meeting. Now, during the meeting, making relevant and productive contributions, asking for clarification if necessary, do not try to be an interrupter unnecessarily, and being prepared to justify your opinions, being attentive and listening attentively, being aware of your and others' body language, and after the meeting, following up with any action agreed during the meeting. That's being, positive participation. That's having positive participation. Well, whenever there are people, there are people in a group who are discussing. Conflicts take place, and the possible outcome is a win-win assumption. However, there can be win-lose assumption, lose-lose assumption, and win-win assumption. Now, what is the difference? The difference is that in win-lose assumption, you have mutual satisfaction. In win-win assumptions, you can have mutual satisfaction of possibilities. Parties willing to cooperate, and parties can be trusted. So always go for conflict resolving strategy of win-win assumptions. About minutes of meeting, I refresh your understanding before we move on to the samples that they can be defined as written records of the business, transcribed at a meeting. Many will have some legal and authorized force. It may well have some legal and authoritative force, and must summarize the major contributions to the discussion in such a way that each speaker's interactions are recorded. Must be clear about what the speaker meant, not just what the individual said. The process of minutes writing is a process of interpretation, not just repetition. Minutes must be clear about what the speaker meant, not just what the individual said. The process of minutes writing is a process of interpretation, not just repetition. However, you have to be impartial in interpretation, not to mold your interpretation too much that it is totally different from what has been said. Now check that the minutes provide a true, impartial and balanced account of the proceedings, because if you become too much interpretive, then the meaning of the talk will entirely change. Make sure the minutes are written in clear, concise and unambiguous language, because this is again a business document and you are applying 7 C's here. Minutes need to follow a method of presentation which helps the reader assimilate the content. So elements to be included in a minute, once again we need to include heading, we need to present the idea, who was present at the meeting, apologies of absence, and minutes of the previous meeting if there was any, and any other business if you have to discuss. Types of meetings can be different. I have shared a few samples with you, but still there are a few other types that you can use, and you can have more samples of them to look at. Like minutes can be narrative, minutes can be resolutionary. You have resolution minutes, you can have action minutes. And I can show you some samples of them. So when you will click on these hyperlink things, you will be able to have a look at the samples of the minutes. Well, however, whenever meetings are taking place in second language, in English, so whatever we have discussed so far, these are the conventions, these are the norms, these are the professional ethics which have to be, which have to be followed no matter in what language meeting is taking place. A business meeting is meeting, whether it's in Urdu or it's in Punjabi or it's in any other vernacular language. You are a professional, and being a business professional, you need to follow the norms and rules and regulations. However, the problem becomes a little more serious in nature if the business meeting is in English and you do not have the required skills to understand or to take part in the meeting. For example, if your boss is a native speaker, then you may have problem in understanding the accent and pronunciation. If the speaker, I'm trying my best to give you different listening practices of people belonging different backgrounds, different accents. Some are quick. Some are speakers who speak at a faster pace. Some are speakers who speak at a lower pace. So I'm trying to give you a mixture of approaches and practices, so you are prepared to cope up with the listening of different types of different speakers. So speed can be another issue. Maybe speaker is a kind of a fast on pace speaker who speaks faster than usual. So how to perceive pace of native speaker delivery, and how to move according to his or her pace. Then inability to predict because of unfamiliarity with concept or subject matter, terminologies or jargons, and cultural references if you are entirely novice or new to the culture being addressed by the speaker. And sustaining concentration. Many a times you lose attention. You are not able to concentrate. You get lost in your own thoughts. You start checking your messages or making a phone call, and you just break the connection with whatever has been discussed so far or whatever you were into. So you need to know how to sustain your concentration. So with this, I will take you to some some bits and bytes we can discuss for the listening strategies, particularly for meetings. Well, look at the screen. It gives you some strategies to strengthen your academic listening skills and professional listening skills. Your academic and professional listening skills. Well, before the meeting, you should prepare yourself mentally. And how can you do that? Write down one thing you already know about the topic and listen to confirm. Well, prepare the subject area. How can you do that? Reading in advance to establish a context. Then predict what you will hear, outline format. What do you expect the speaker will talk about? Write down 2 or 3 questions related to the topic, 2 or 3 things you expect to find out, you would like to know, you didn't understand from the reading. And then, during the meeting, listen for keywords. Don't write down everything. Leave lots of white space on the page. Use a numbering system. Listen for organizational signpost. First of all, next, a further point, or finally. 1, 2, or first or second, you can use any type of signposting. Listen for summaries and for repeats to sum up in summary, and then you will be able to figure out what has been discussed if you miss out on any. Mind drifting, wake up. If your mind starts sleeping or you start losing concentration, you need to tell yourself, be conscious of the talk. Link to what you know. Write notes to yourself, examples, give examples and comparisons. So you are, when you are listening, you are analyzing at the same time. Now, read over your notes after meeting as soon as you can after the lecture, or use hours between classes. So use hour between the breaks so you do not miss later on if you try to read your notes and interpret them. Transform, manipulate the information in some way, make a chart, make a diagram, make a mind map, or any kind of illustration for yourself to, so the idea sticks to your mind and you're able to, you are sure that you have understood whatever has been talked so far. Okay, so these were the few strategies I shared with you regarding pre-meeting, during meeting, and post-meeting listening strategies that can help you improve your listening skills. Now, a word about meeting evaluations. Well, how can we evaluate meeting? Was the meeting's goal clear? Or was the agenda useful and followed properly? How prepared were group members? Did everyone have an equal chance to participate? And this goes to the chairperson who is directing and taking control. Did members listen effectively and consider different points of views? Okay. Were assumptions and deadlines made clear by the end of the meeting? If you're following these things, you are conducting a successful meeting. Otherwise, the meeting can be a failure. Additional information, evaluative questions can be that, did the meeting begin and end on time? And I would want you to think about more questions and write them down. And so when you become a participant of a meeting, you can evaluate whether this meeting is successful or not, or in situation where you hold a meeting, you know how to hold a successful meeting. All right. Now, let's quickly wrap up the topic before we switch on to our next activity. What do we mean by writing minutes of meeting? It can be defined as a written record of the business, transcribed at a meeting. May well have some legal and authoritative force. It must summarize the major contributions to the discussion in such a way that each speaker's interaction are recorded, and it must be clear about what the speaker meant, not just what the individual said. And the process of minutes writing is a process of interpretation, not just simple repetition. And the format of minute writing that we followed is date and place listed, name of the participants, name of the presence and absence, and all the main points are summarized and numbered under headings or sections, and avoid bias when recording items. Try to be impartial. All right. The elements, the major elements, the parts of the body parts of a minute writing include heading, acknowledgement of whosoever is present, apologies for absence, minutes for previous meeting if there were any other business, statements of what actually occurred, action, all the action, you head them and you write them separately, and this is how you generate your minutes of meeting. You need to check that they are true, impartial, clear, concise, to the point, accurate, and follow a flow of the true flow of presentation. We talked about 3 different types of meetings. They can be narrative, they can be resolution minutes, and they can be action minutes, depending on what action has been taken. When are you to distribute the minutes? They can be distributed the next day, or copy all relevant individuals electronically if you want to. Make sure that the chairperson approves the minutes before you send them, and update the status of issues and provide updated minutes to meeting attendants prior to follow-up for the meeting. So this was all for today's subject talk. Now let's move on to our business language expansion activity. Well, look at the screen. Look at these items. What do you think? Which of these characteristics are the most important for a good salesperson? If you are a salesperson, what do you think? What are the good characteristics, or what are the characteristics you need to adopt? Well, the characteristics of a good salesperson: he has to be entrusted, really listen to the customer, smiles all the time, he needs to be friendly, knows a lot about their products. What do you think? A word: knowledge. He's knowledgeable, has a smart appearance, presentation, presentable. You feel you can trust him or her. Well, trustworthy, can explain the USP of the product, competent, gives the customer time to think of a word, patient, good at making the customer believe in the product. Well, persuasive, he can convince the customer. He can make small talk, he's chatty, he's friendly. So the characteristics we look into a good salesperson are: he's entrusted, friendly, knowledgeable, presentable, trustworthy, competent, patient, persuasive, and chatty. These are the adjectives that you can look for in a salesperson, or adopt as a salesperson if you're going to be in the business. Alright, now when you are going to buy a product, which questions do you ask? For example, if you're going to buy a car, which questions would you ask? You may ask, which model is this car? Or which make, which make I would like? I would like a Corolla or Toyota, or I would like Camry, or I would like Corey. Alright, how many colors do you offer for this car? What about the engine? Is it working well? What optional extras would I like if I would want to have some extra features in my car? Am I planning to travel long distance or short distance, because that may change my decision of buying some particular model? Or what about the color I'm interested in? Think about these questions when you go to buy a car. Why you're thinking about these questions? Because these are the questions can be asked to you if you are a salesperson for a car and a customer comes to you. So the second tip, the second language expansion tip of the day is that think about a product that you want to buy and all the questions that you want to ask the salesperson, and then be the salesperson and answer all the questions. So at the same time, keep yourself in the shoe of a customer and a salesperson, and try to, generate ideas and talk about them in front of the mirror about all those things. This will prepare you to be an effective salesperson if you are looking for the kind of job, or marketing advisor, or a marketing person if you're going to be in the market and talk about the products. This was about the language expansion tips of the day. Now we are going to start with our listening activity. Are you ready? Let's start. Okay, like always, I'm going to show you the question that you are going to pay attention to. Look at the screen. And I am going to play the audio so you can check the questions that you think the interviewer asked Liz. So it is clear that Liz is the interviewee that you are going to listen to this time. And here you go for the audio. Please be attentive. Look at the questions. And here you go.
Well, I've been reading this article about e-tailing, which I believe is referring to shopping online, which is obviously an increasingly popular pastime. Well, the general message is that it's not overly successful in a lot of cases because it's actually quite difficult to get customers to buy things from you online because, like with regular shopping, I guess, a lot of people are just window shoppers, so they're just looking for something to entertain themselves with, spend a few minutes just browsing online. So a lot of people visit these websites to look at the products, but very few actually buy them. And one of the statistics, I think, was that less than 5% of people visiting certain websites actually buy something. Well, they've been investigating different ways to improve this situation, and some of them sound quite interesting. So they've calculated that apparently many more sales are made when people have actual human contact. Obviously this is quite difficult through a computer screen, but what they've done in this situation is they have people available via the company to talk to you via a live web chat. So if it looks like you're having difficulty deciding on your purchase, there could be someone there to advise you. I don't know if this would be overly successful because some people don't really like being bothered when they're trying to shop. But for other people, it might help them make a decision. Oh, I mean, I always prefer to talk to a real person myself. If I've got something that I need explained to me, I can't always trust my own understanding of the written word on a computer screen, so I'd like to have a real person explain it to me. The most frustrating thing is this usually entails a very long phone call with a lot of waiting on hold, listening to some very bad music, having to press 1 about 5 times in a row, and eventually you get through to someone who, of course, doesn't really know who you are or what your needs are, and they usually want to get you off the phone quite quickly. So yeah, it's quite a frustrating thing, but I always prefer to be able to be in phone contact with someone rather than just through email or looking at computer screens. I think people still, especially in this country, view shopping as a real sort of hobby. People enjoy getting in the car, driving to the shopping mall, getting out of the car, walking around the shops, and I think looking at pictures on screen can never compare to actually seeing the products in real life, being able to pick things up and touch them and, you know, try things on if you're looking at clothes, try things out if you're looking at gadgets, and I think this would never be replaced by shopping entirely online. The only things I really buy online would be, I would say, things like books and CDs and things like that. But even then, even though I know it's cheaper to buy online, I still prefer to go to an actual bookshop, pick up a book in my own hands and buy it. So yeah, I'd say I don't shop that often online. To be honest, I don't really worry about that kind of thing anymore, about, you know, credit card security, because I think in this day and age things are advanced enough that the security on these sites must be pretty good. So I don't really worry about that kind of thing anymore. You stand just as much, if not more, chance of being ripped off just by using your card in a shop. So, you know, you just have to take these chances, really. Well, I mean, the interesting thing for me was about how obviously the human contact element is quite important, and what some websites are doing when they don't have the opportunity to have a real live person communicate with you. Instead, they have little animations of you know, salespeople, of people to help you. And apparently this does actually improve sales, because people, even if it's not a real person communicating with them, people still prefer some kind of interaction and some kind of happy, smiling figure to direct them towards the till. Yeah, I think she's supposed to be some kind of trustworthy salesperson type of woman, but I don't know if she would persuade me to buy a product I was dithering about, to be honest.
All right, here you are. I hope done with the first part of the questions. All right, here you go for the second part of the questions. Look at them. These are 3 in number. You have to circle the correct information, decide if the following are true or false, and match the words and phrases with their synonyms. And here you go.
Well, I've been reading this article about e-tailing, which I believe is referring to shopping online, which is obviously an increasingly popular pastime. Well, the general message is that it's not overly successful in a lot of cases because it's actually quite difficult to get customers to buy things from you online. Because like with regular shopping, I guess, a lot of people are just window shoppers. So they're just looking for something to entertain themselves with, spend a few minutes just browsing online. So a lot of people visit these websites to look at the products, but very few actually buy them. And one of the statistics, I think, was that less than 5% of people visiting certain websites actually buy something. Well, they've been investigating different ways to improve this situation, and some of them sound quite interesting. So they've calculated that apparently many more sales are made when people have actual human contact. Obviously this is quite difficult through a computer screen, but what they've done in this situation is they have people available via the company to talk to you via a live web chat. So if it looks like you're having difficulty deciding on your purchase, there could be someone there to advise you. I don't know if this would be overly successful because some people don't really like being bothered when they're trying to shop. But for other people it might help them make a decision. Oh, I mean, I always prefer to talk to a real person myself. If I've got something that I need explained to me, I can't always trust my own understanding of the written word on a computer screen, so I'd like to have a real person explain it to me. The most frustrating thing is this usually entails a very long phone call with a lot of waiting on hold, listening to some very bad music, having to press 1 about 5 times in a row, and eventually you get through to someone who, of course, doesn't really know who you are or what your needs are, and they usually want to get you off the phone quite quickly. So yeah, it's quite a frustrating thing, but I always prefer to be able to be in phone contact with someone rather than just through email or looking at computer screens. I think people still, especially in this country, view shopping as a real sort of hobby. People enjoy getting in the car, driving to the shopping mall, getting out of the car, walking around the shops, and I think looking at pictures on screen can never compare to actually seeing the products in real life, being able to pick things up and touch them and, you know, try things on if you're looking at clothes, try things out if you're looking at gadgets, and I think this would never be replaced by shopping entirely online. The only things I really buy online would be, I would say, things like books and CDs and things like that. But even then, even though I know it's cheaper to buy online, I still prefer to go to an actual bookshop, pick up a book in my own hands and buy it. So yeah, I'd say I don't shop that often online. To be honest, I don't really worry about that kind of thing anymore, about, you know, credit card security, because I think in this day and age things are advanced enough that the security on these sites must be pretty good, so I don't really worry about that kind of thing anymore. You stand just as much, if not more, chance of being ripped off just by using your card in a shop, so, you know, you just have to take these chances, really. Well, I mean, the interesting thing for me was about how obviously the human contact element is quite important, and what some websites are doing when they don't have the opportunity to have a real live person communicate with you. Instead, they have little animations of you know, salespeople, of people to help you. And apparently this does actually improve sales, because people, even if it's not a real person communicating with them, people still prefer some kind of interaction and some kind of happy, smiling figure to direct them towards the till. Yeah, I think she's supposed to be some kind of trustworthy salesperson type of woman, but I don't know if she would persuade me to buy a product I was dithering about, to be honest.
All right, I hope you are done by now. So let me see how accurate answers you can get. Well, look at the very first question. So, the questions 2, 3, 5, 6, 9, and 10 are the questions that are asked to Liz. She doesn't prefer. Second question 1. Second question 2. CDs and books are the items. Question number 3 and 2. She wouldn't. Alright. Question number 3. The very first one is true. Second is false. A lot of people window shop. Just look but don't buy. Number 3 is true. Number 4 is the very first answer for the very first one is E. For the second one is C. For the third one is D. For the fourth one is A. Fifth one is F. And sixth one is B. Well, that was all about our today's listening activity. I hope you would have enjoyed listening to Liz. Alright, after listening activity, we are done with our today's lecture, and let me give you a quick review what we have done so far. In today's lecture, we talked about business meeting, planning, execution, and minute making, and we discussed all the conventions, practices, and strategies we need to know regarding business making and writing minutes. And what do we include in minutes? What are the conventions? How do we take minutes? And we also discussed a few samples to be effective minutes right. And then we also have our listening activity and language expansion activity for today's lecture. This was all for today's talk. I'll see you in the next lecture, inshallah. Till then, Allah Hafiz.